Didn't affect her.
Did you smoke a lot?
Yeah, I was smoking 3 packs a day when I quit.
3 packs a day?
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot.
Huh?
That was definitely a lot of cigarettes.
It was.
Okay. Now, what's your full name?
Huh?
Your full name.
Samuel A. Samuel Alexander. Of course, I signed it Samuel A. When, of course, it's Samuel Alexander.
And what did you do in the cotton mill?
Well, I started off as a trainee. I went from that to, well, I learned all I could. Ended up as a card grinder and fixer and I was promoted to a supervisor, and I went and supervised. And then when I quit, I was general overseer.
Wow.
Lots of hard work went in them 44 years.
Now, do you remember what your job was like before Roosevelt came in?
Remember what?
What was your work like before President Roosevelt was elected?
Oh, it wasn't, we didn't have a sweatshop or nothing like that. We had a pretty good job. It was cheap, just wasn't no pay. But I mean, we wasn't pushed and all that stuff, threatened and all that stuff. And we had pretty good folks to work for, and it was just cheap labor. And that's why I quit school, and the biggest mistake I ever made. And I knew all I had to sell was my labor, and I had to work like the devil to learn all I could, to get all I could for my labor. That's all I had to do, sell. Without too much schooling, I had about a 7th, 8th grade education.
Do you remember, what the hours and the money that you were making before President Roosevelt went in?
Oh yeah, we was working 11 hours a day, 5 hours on Saturday, 11 o'clock on Saturday. And we made from 10 to maybe 15, 18 cents an hour, according to what you done, see. Fixers might make, what they call key men might make 20 cents an hour or so. Some couldn't. Loom fixers such as that might have made 25 cents, but it was about, I started to work at 10 cents an hour. Of course, it was training.
What year was that?
1926. 14 years old.
Now, did you live here on the Mill Hill?
Huh?
You lived here on the village?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been living here. Let's see, I bought this house in '54. I was living in it when I bought it. I moved in that house across the street, I think, in 1937. I've been on the street since 1937.
And before 1937?
Huh?
What about before 1937?
Oh, I lived up the street, and I lived in several houses, Brian, when I was a kid with my mother and father. But me and my wife lived in, well, we lived in the house up over my mother, and then we moved over on this highway and moved down there and up here. That's the only place. We hadn't moved except from down there up here since 1937. We moved up here in 46.
And what can you tell me about Roosevelt coming in?
Oh, well, like I said yesterday, he was a godsend to the country. There's no doubt about it. You could ride around through, not just for textile, but you ride around through the country, you can see it's FHA, the effects of FHA had on the farmers. Now, I can take you around and show you some bonds that the FHA built for farmers back in them days, and furnished them supplies, helped them get cows and stuff like that to farm with.
But tell me what he did for the textiles. What did he do for you?
For me, well, one thing, he made life a whole lot easier for all of us, because he gave us, well, we have Social Security, which is forerunner of Medicare, and we have, back when we were people, you see people hungry, I mean actually hungry. And he stopped all that. See, he gave us a cushion. Now, I don't know what sort of shape people would be in now if it hadn't have been for his foresight here, because he gave us cushions that helps ease a lot of this tension now when we get, when the economy goes to pot.
And specifically for the textile industry,
Huh?
specifically for the cotton mill workers, do you remember when they put the cotton textile code in? Remember when the NRA went into effect?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had, I got my card. Social Security went in on all that, see.
Yeah, that came later.
National Labor Relation Act and the NRA, the bird flu. See. It was, all that helped textile. The textile industry never did organize. That's the reason it finally become the sick industry of our country. See, automobile, steel, all the others organized. They had a solid union. But textile unions never organized. They might have some unions scattered about, but they never did organize. This mill was organized for years, but it was the only one around that was organized. And Roosevelt gave us the opportunity. He gave us steel, all the rest of them, because the National Labor Act gave us that, see. Before that, you better not mention a union around a mill town or a mining town unless you wanted trouble. That National Labor Act give people the rights to organize and bargain collectively. And the worker had a voice.
Did you personally get involved in that first union effort in 1933 and 34?
I don't remember too much about that union. Of course, I belonged to it, I know. But I can't remember who was president, who was president of the International. I tried. I can't.
The president of the International?
Huh?
Or the president of your local union or the president of the International?
President of the local or the International. I can't.
I could tell you who was president of the International.
Bill Green.
Mac Mahone.
Mac Mahone.
Yeah. And then there was a man named Francis Gorman.
Yeah. Well, now, Emil Reeby was president of the 1934 outfit went busted, and Emil Reeby was become president of the one we joined in 1941. We had another strike here in 1941, joined the TWA. Emil Reeby, Baldanzi was vice president. William Pollock was treasurer. Pollock finally became president of that union. I don't know what become of Pollock, but I think Baldanzi and Emil Reeby died, but then Pollock went with Amalgamated Clothing Workers, I believe.
Now, what happened in 1934? Do you remember how they organized a little bit around here?
I can't remember. I asked a lady today that worked down there during that time. She told me, said, I can't remember. Said, I remember we had a barbecue here. Lots of people got sick. Something was wrong with the hogs. Oh, she couldn't. She said, I remember the barbecue, but I can't remember that union.
I found 2 advertisements about that union in the newspaper today. Do you want to see that?
Yeah.
Okay, don't move. Which newspaper did you take in when you were in the 1930s? Did you take in the Herald Journal?
Oh, yeah, I've read the Herald Journal. I don't take it now. I read it sometime with my son, but I don't see too well. I don't read too much. I read the daily headlines of the daily paper and the market, business news in it. I don't read too much.
Did you used to
I read my Bible. It's a large print, though.
Did you used to read the Herald Journal a long time ago?
Oh, yeah, I've read it ever since we've been here.
This might be hard to see. This was the town promising that they would do their part with President Roosevelt.
Streets of this town in 10 years, I don't. Now, of course, I park my car and I'll get out and go on a place of business. Or I'll go to the bank. I'll go to the grocery store, but I don't. I park where I can. You got plenty of parking now. You don't have to walk so much. And I can't walk nowhere. But I remember all them places of business.
Now, you see what they're saying is they're going to be part of the Blue Eagle. They're committed to President Roosevelt, that they're going to obey by the Blue Eagle.
It flew high when it flew. It brought us out of a terrible depression. And it, like I told you yesterday, Roosevelt had a lot of common sense. I don't think. Don't misunderstand me. I'm proud of sending my boy to Tech. He graduated from Tech. I'm proud of my grandchildren's education because, see, I didn't get it. But Roosevelt gave us the opportunity as the minimum wage started increasing. Naturally, if you had some skill, your wage didn't stop at the minimum. You went on up. And it gave the working man a chance to send his kids to school. Roosevelt done that. We used to raise the workforce at Maryland. I went to work when I was a kid, see. Everybody went to work when they were kids. Quit school, go to work. But now when I had to start training people. You couldn't hire kids. I had to start hiring who I could to train. Our kids was going to college. And that's some of the progress working people have made with with the plans Roosevelt laid out for us. See?
Now,
And you know what helped do it? The National Labor Act, National Labor Relation Act. Now don't get me wrong about the union. I was a union member till I became a supervisor. And I operated under a contract after I become a supervisor, union contract. But now I'll grant you that union, after, it finally become, frankly, I think organized crime taking over organized labor. And that still hurting organized labor.
they're trying to change that, I think.
It is. It's not growing like it was. They're losing members. And I don't go for that, but I do go for the principle of organized labor, which is an honest day's work for a fair day's pay. When two people sit down to the bargain table to bargain, if either party is trying to cut the other one's throat, there's not very much progress will be made. But when two people sit down to bargain collectively and understand each other's problems, they can settle a whole lot of things that you can't settle. But I negotiated union contracts with management. The contract I was operating under, I put that contract in effect before I left the union. Not all of it, but it was part of it. I mean, the foundation of that contract was there. It had been some changes made.
Now, why was it that this town was able to get organized and other towns, they weren't?
Well, like I said, it's people that, hotheads that you can't do nothing with. That's what tore Mary Leela down. You take this last strike we had in '54. The union never was active after that, except the company kept the contract because it was fair to each side. We wanted to operate under it because it treated the help right. We had seniority rights. We had vacation pay, and we had holidays, and we had all that stuff, see? Well, the company didn't want to destroy that.
Let me ask you a question. The NRA and the National Labor Relations Act and Section 7A, you remember that?
What's that, Chuck?
Section 7A.
No, I don't think so.
That was that piece in the legislation that gave you the right to organize and bargain collectively.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
How did management and the industry feel about those laws?
Well, naturally, they didn't like it. Because now, don't let nobody tell you, before the National Labor Act, organized labor operated underground. I mean, Bill Green and John L. Lewis, and you've heard of them. Phil Murray. All them fellas, they couldn't come out open. And I remember old John L. told, when he was asked one time, why do you always want a shotgun bargain? He said, you boys, that's the only way y'all taught me to bargain. when they had the upper hand, that's what they done, see. Johnny L. got his coal miners organized, and he had the upper hand, see. And they taught him the shotgun bargain.
And why was it that here that the textile industry was so strong against the unions in 1934? Because there were so many local unions that were organized. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. And I remember, you see, I remember our governor, Gene Talmadge. And a fellow by the name of W.D. Anderson was president of Bibb Manufacturing. And do you know they had a concentration camp set up for textile workers? And I think it's Hitler got a pattern from it right down here around Columbus, somewhere down in there. W.D. Anderson had thugs out of New York come down with the machine guns. And they put them in barbed wire fences down there with the National Guards. That's
Fort McPherson.
Huh?
Fort McPherson.
Was that where it was at? I know it was down there somewhere.
Near Noonan.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that at the time?
Well, I thought it was hell. You don't put human beings in barbed wire fence and treat them like cattle. That's not right. And do you know that's one thing that, well, it got, I think Bibb got rid of W.D. Anderson after that, and so did the people get rid of Gene Talmadge. Because people, I don't care, back them days, everybody hated the union, but when people saw such as that, the union wasn't the bad guys. It was on the shoe had got on the other foot, see?
You think?
Yeah.
You think it really changed popular opinion like that?
I know it did. I saw I tell you the truth. I've saw people on strikes, and I've been around until I've talked to people on strikes. But now, when you lose the public support, you're going to lose a strike. Because the public opinion is what, well, it has a lot of effect on a town, the people of a town. And it has lots of effect on that picket line and that man sitting in that office. See? If you get out and conduct yourself like people that wants to, an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, then you can do business.
Now, do you remember how the strike, how the public and how the mill management responded to that strike, that general strike in 1934, aside from what happened in Noonan?
No, well, I'll tell you the truth, I don't.
Because that was the general strike.
Yeah, the 1934 general strike. It was, and it was pulled to. It was a mistake. I thought after I thought it over, I thought it was a mistake. It was pulled too soon. The people wasn't ready for something like that. It was a general strike. It was a big thing. See. And the people, had no war chest, they had no war fund, they had no strike funds, they had nothing, see. And when you go out, and public opinion wasn't with the people in the 34 strike. I tell you who swung the public opinion to the Union, Walter Reuther. Walter Reuther, he made his speeches from the West Coast to New York, from Miami to Canada, see? You've read of him, Walter Reuther, automobile workers.
Well, why did
But
they
did you know
strike?
they shot him? They shot Walter Reuther. He had a crippled arm all the rest of his life because he was an honest guy. He was an honest labor leader. But when the mob started coming in, they didn't want honesty in it.
Why did they strike, Mr. Beeland, in 1934?
Well, it was, I don't know. I tell you, I don't remember. That's what I can't remember, but I do remember knowing that it was a mistake leading all them people out and with nothing. See, the government had to feed the people. The union didn't have nothing to support them.
Do you recall any of the members from here going to a convention in August of 1934 where they decided to carry out this big strike?
I don't remember who it was. I don't know who. I don't know none of the officials of the local. Oh, I can't remember none of them.
Do you,
I knew them.
do you remember going to meetings?
Huh?
Do you remember going to meetings?
No, I don't. That's what's got me dumbfounded, see.
Okay. I'll show you some stuff.
Well, like I said yesterday, they run back a long time. They run pickers, opener, cards. And I don't know of, I wasn't all over the mill. We had others working in the mill. I don't know what they're doing. But we had scrubbers and sweepers. Some of them was black. And we had firemen, yard crew. Abe Jackson was a fireman all his life. I reckon all his life. And we had a yard crew. There was lots of people worked on. Derry Drake worked on the yard, and Derry Drake was fireman. Later years, he got over the yard. Lots of lifting out there, handling cotton and stuff. And Derry got, I think he was in there. Derry was in there. He was fireman. Derry was the president's chauffeur, too. He was
President of the mill?
Mr. Merritt's chauffeur. Mr. Merritt, he was president. Derry was his chauffeur. Derry Drake was a good colored, and Abe Jackson too. All them boys we had was good colored people, real good people. And
Now, do you remember what your job was in 1933-34? Were you working in the opening room then?
well, no, I don't know whether I was running fly frames, working in the open room, fixing. See, I done it all. I run the opener, pickers, cards, drawing, fly frame, slubbers, nanometers, that's what you call fly frame, speeders. I doffed speeders, and I fixed ground cards. I fixed on the other machines, and then when they give Mr. McDonald, which was general overseer, a helper, I was his helper. I went to the spinning end card.
When the NRA went into effect and they lowered the hours from 11 hours to 8 hours and they made the minimum wage, how did the mill, in terms of workloads, respond to that?
It wasn't changed. It was now, as I say, we didn't have too big a workload. I mean, it wasn't a sweatshop. It wasn't, but it was cheap. cheap wages. That's the only thing. But we reading it was organized in '34. I don't know, but the reading it was organized in '41.
Do you want me to tell you how I have come to understand why it was organized in '34? If I share this with you, maybe it'll help jog your memory. Okay. Okay.
Not and all that stuff.
Right.
I understand that.
And that's why they went on strike, because they couldn't keep their local unions together, and they couldn't change the stretch out. And when they tried to write letters to the government to say, hey, send an investigator down here to deal with this, they were being ignored. So they didn't really know what else to do except to make a public statement. Does that sound right?
Yeah, well, that's I understand. That's why it was organized, but I don't understand why when we wouldn't. Now I understand in '41 why we organized. We reorganized in '41 because you see we are still on the 30-cent minimum wage at that time. Well, there wasn't nobody much making over 30 cents. Let's say, but now they hadn't stretched out and all that stuff, but it was cheap. What?
Did they stretch out in response to the National Recovery Act?
No.
Now maybe Mary Lila didn't.
No, other mills, lots of them did, but they didn't. Well, the Dolphins went out and asked for 35 cents an hour.
In '34?
No, that was in
41. Okay. Let's go back to '34.
I just can't.
That's okay.
I can't break through with it.
Okay.
I can't get it.
Well, I think the reason they went out at Mary Layla was because the entire industry went out, and they wanted to be in support of the general strike.
That's the reason they went out, but they wasn't thinking. It was a mistake. After we went out, we understood. Well, I never did. Like I say, I don't know how or what happened to cause us to go out, but I know after we went through the '41 strike, we knew that the '34 strike was a mistake more so than ever before.
Do you think that there was a great opportunity in 1934 for there to be organized labor throughout the textile industry before that strike?
I don't think the organized if they hadn't have pulled that '34 strike, organized labor might have been stronger in the textile industry years later. That '34 strike hurt the textile industry as far as people organizing, because there's lots of people that suffered, and they never did get over it. Now, I know a fella that organized us in '41, a fella White, Horace White. He was in the '34 strike. And he was beat up scandalous. I mean, he's beat up awful bad. His daddy was an overseer. And he organized his daddy. But Horace was blackballed after the '34 strike. You better not mention a union after that around nowhere. See? Horace had to change his name to get a job. And if he told me if he went to a place and see his daddy was an overseer, weaving overseer. And Horace was a draper, a loom builder. He put in new looms for mills and stuff. And he met lots of these traveling drummers and things, see. Well, he told me, he said, if I saw one of them guys walk in the mill and see me, I went and got my hat then, left. Because he's going to tell the front office, and they're going to beat him up. He had scars all over him, looked like he'd been through 2 wars, and shrapnel got him.
Did it frighten you to see him like that?
Huh?
Did it frighten you to see Horace like that?
Yeah, You mean him fighting?
Now, did it frighten you to see his scars?
Oh no, because I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I was. I've been on picket lines, but I never did get out there to fight and raise the devil.
And what made Horace continue to organize even after all that?
He done it long as he lived. He died. Well, he retired organizing. He retired when he was 65 years old. He moved back here, buried up here.
In Greensboro?
Yeah.
Was he from Greensboro?
No, his wife was. His wife used to live right down there where he had married lived.
Where was he from?
Horace was from Monroe originally, Monroe, Georgia. And he was in Alabama, lots of different places he moved around. But I can't think of 34. But I'm sorry that the 34 strike happened. Because I know it hurt. It set Textile back a whole lot.
And did you see for a while there was a lot of, did you see a new kind of enthusiasm or participation amongst textile workers after the NIRA went into effect?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Could you tell me about that?
No, it was just, well, people got to where, anybody, I don't know whether you ever seen poverty too much, but anybody that's living from, it's like I told you here yesterday. I've had folks to ask me for a dime when I had to tell them I didn't have a dime. I mean, that didn't mean I didn't have it in my pocket. I didn't have a bank account either. See? Well, after the NRA come into effect and people started making a little money, and they knew what to do with it because they'd been through so much. That was the best economical education you could get going through that depression before Roosevelt come in office. And we started putting a few bucks in the bank and educating our children, and it was they was holding their head high, you see.
Now, how did the mill owners think about this Section 7A and minimum wage?
How did who?
The mill owners, W.D. Anderson, Mr. Freeman.
Oh, they didn't. Naturally, it made them money, but they didn't like it because they had to, as old W.D. said one time, if they wanna, one of his bosses went to him and told him that the people was getting restless. They wanted a raise. He said, well, if they want a little luxury, give them a little sugar to put in their coffee. That's how they felt, see. Anything, and I'm quite sure they didn't like it. No way they could like it. Because that cut 20 hours a week and raised my pay from about $6 or $7 a week to $12 a week for 40 hours, see? Well, then after this started, you could